As you can see here, portfolio approach to investing, each investment should be evaluated on the basis of its contribution to the entire portfolio as a whole. So each portfolio of a client consists of multiple assets. So if you have ever invested, everybody invests whatever extra money they earn. So it's not like you put every month, the entire amount in one single place. You have multiple assets like stocks, bonds, alternative investments, so on and so forth. So each investment should be evaluated on the basis of its contribution to the characteristics of the portfolio as a whole. What are the characteristics? Whether you talk about risk characteristics or you talk about return characteristics. So the contribution of each asset should be evaluated, and then you have to look at it from a portfolio perspective. Taking the portfolio perspective offers diversification benefits. Diversification benefits, if I were to summarize, it would be that if you have multiple assets as a part of your portfolio, if one asset is not doing too well, it doesn't mean that the entire portfolio is going down. If one asset is not performing, you might have another asset which is doing well. That is known as diversification benefit. By not putting all their eggs in one basket, individuals can diversify away some of the risk in their investments. The diversification ratio is the ratio of stated standard deviation of an equal weighted portfolio to the standard deviation of a randomly selected component of the portfolio. Now, this gets a little more technical. So, what is an equal weighted portfolio? An equal weighted portfolio is where you just divide your investments equally. So, if you have two assets that constitute your portfolio, you just give 50-50% allocation to both. That is known as an equal weighted portfolio, right? So this diversification ratio is the and uh, standard deviation of equal weighted portfolio divided by standard deviation of randomly selected one asset. So for example, if you have 100 rupees right now, you are putting 50 rupees in stocks and 50 rupees in bonds. That is an example of an equally weighted portfolio. If you take the standard deviation of that entire portfolio as a numerator and you take the standard deviation of one of those two components and put that in the denominator, the ratio that you get is known as the diversification ratio. What does standard deviation signify? Standard deviation signifies the level of risk, right? We measure returns in terms of percentage and we measure risk in terms of standard deviation, right? So when we have two assets which are not correlated to each other, they are moving in opposite directions. When one is going up, the other one is going down. This ratio is going to be less than one, and that is what we want to achieve as investors and portfolio managers, right? Now, the composition of the portfolio is an important determinant of the overall risk inherent in the portfolio. Now, which assets you choose? How do you allocate the funds amongst these different assets? All these things determine the overall risk and return in a portfolio. Just by varying the weights of individual securities, investors can arrive at a portfolio that offers the same return as an equally weighted portfolio but with lower risk, right? Your portfolio standard deviation tends to be lower than average standard deviation of its components due to less than positive correlation between the returns on its components. So I hope our discussion is clear about how we have to have a portfolio approach towards investing. We can't say right now stock markets is not doing well. So when stock markets are not doing well, but look at gold, the way gold prices are rallying. So if you have a proper mix of different asset classes which do not move in tandem, you will achieve good returns with lesser possible risk. So, like I told you, we had an LOS about portfolio approach to investing, and we have covered it on one slide. The second LOS talks about describe the steps in the portfolio management process. Now, before I get to the steps of portfolio management, I would like to talk about the different types of investors. So, the third LOS, as per the chapter, says describe the types of investors and distinctive characteristics and needs of each. So, different types of investors are two major types, individuals and institutions. The reasons for investing by individual investors could be providing for children's college education, saving for retirement, starting a business, going for an international trip. It could be anything. These are common reasons why individual people like to invest in the stock markets. Younger investors tend to be more aggressive and they look more for capital gains. They have a higher risk appetite. And older investors look to generate a stable income stream to meet their retirement needs, or they want to focus more on capital preservation and saving the money that they've earned over the years. The second type of investors are the institutional investors, the big guys. Who are they? They are like the defined benefit pension plans, defined contribution pension plans, endowments, foundations, banks, insurance companies, sovereign wealth funds. So these are majorly these are the institutional investors who park their money in the financial markets in different assets. Um, Likewise, in US, earlier defined benefit pension plans were very popular, wherein the amount of benefit that a retiree avails every month was fixed. So a company would promise to its employee that once you retire, say after 10 years, every month I promise to give you $2,000 per month. Say, suppose defined benefit pension plan where the company promises the amount of benefit that the employee is going to receive after retirement. Defined contribution pension plan is something which is gaining popularity. A lot of companies just want to fix the contribution amount and not bother about what the employee is going to draw after retirement. So these type of pension plans are the most important part of institutional investors. Similarly, you have endowments and foundations. You would have heard a university endowment is established to provide financial support to the university and its students. Endowments and foundations, they aim to maintain inflation adjusted capital value of their funds while generating the necessary income to meet their objectives. So foundations are generally some charitable organization or some family foundations, things like that. Endowments are typically for universities. Then you have banks. A bank typically aims to earn a return on its reserves that is greater than the interest that it pays to the depositor. So I go and I make an FD in HDFC Bank. The HDFC Bank gives me 6% interest. And using those funds, it's going to lend it out as home loan, car loan, housing loan, so on and so forth, at an interest rate which is much higher than 6%. And the spread, the difference between the interest that I'm getting and what the bank is charging is what they earn from. So these guys, they want all their investments to be low risk. They want all their investments to be very very liquid. And why is this? Because if I need money, I would want to withdraw my FD without any prior intimation to the bank. So the bank has to be careful and keep their risk low and liquidity high, right? Similarly, we have insurance companies. Insurance company writes an insurance policy in return for a premium. Insurance companies also have they don't know who's going to ask for a claim, so even they have to maintain a lot of liquidity in their portfolios. The last type of institutional investors are sovereign wealth funds, and these are usually established to invest revenues from finite revenue sources to benefit future generations of citizens or to manage a country's foreign exchange reserves. These are the kind of people who need portfolio management as a service, and they come to the financial markets for investments. Now, these are the one, two, three, four, six types of people who we discussed, right? Now, when I talk about portfolio management for these type of investors, I need to understand the time horizon, the risk tolerance, income needs, and liquidity needs for all of them, right? So this is what I want to achieve as a portfolio manager. If I talk about individual investors, it's very difficult to generalize anything, whether I talk about their time horizon, whether I talk about risk tolerance, or I talk about income needs, liquidity needs. Everything varies on a case to case basis. It really depends on every individual, their um, individual life circumstances, age, current level of income, lifestyle, number of dependents, so on and so forth. So we cannot generalize anything. But if I talk about defined benefit pension plans, these type of institutional investors typically have a very long term time horizon. Their and because they have a very long term time horizon, their risk tolerance is also very high. If I know that I'm not going to withdraw this particular investment for the next 10 years, automatically my risk tolerance goes up. For them, income needs are high for mature funds. Mature funds is those funds which have been investing for the last 20 or 25 years, and who um, expect the employees to now start withdrawing the pension amount. And it is very income needs are low for newer funds or growing funds. Similarly, liquidity needs are also quite low because the companies are relatively sure that this amount is going to be used only if an employee retires from their company. Endowments and foundations also have very long term time horizon, and when they have a long term time horizon, their risk tolerance is also very high. They need uh, some they have very few income needs just to meet spending commitments, and liquidity needs are also quite low. The fund is generally parked for a very long time period, and their spending requirements are maybe 2 to 3% of the entire corpus on an annual basis. Then you have banks. Banks have a very short term time horizon, and because they have a short term time horizon, their risk tolerance is also very low. Their income needs are high because they have to bear all the operation expenses and they have to pay interest to the depositors. And because they have higher income needs, they have higher liquidity needs as well. If we talk about insurance companies, short term for property, casualty, and long term for life insurance companies. Because uh, again, property insurance, casualty insurance, they have to maintain a high amount of liquidity to meet the claims. That's why income needs are low, but liquidity needs are high. And because time horizon is generally short term, so risk tolerance is also short term. An insurance company cannot afford to lose their corpus. They can't afford to have a loss on their investments because ultimately they need to make sure that they fulfill the claims. Investment companies, their requirements will also depend on what type of fund and what type of company we are talking about.